Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harris and I read, review and discuss fantasy and science fiction books, and today we're here to wrap up September. So it is the 1st of October, which means I'm going to talk to you guys about everything that I read in September, every video that I made, and also the channel stats. So and finally a small update about the book buying ban. So what we'll do is we will start at the top with everything that I finished reading in September. Then I'll go on to the things that I'm currently in the process of reading. And then we'll go on to things like what my book of the month was and all that sort of stuff. So let's start with probably the most disappointing book of the month. And this was one that I finished quite near the start of the month. So there's a couple of books here that I did start in August, and I think I actually may have even discussed them on the August wrap-up. But what I think I want to do is make sure that I'm talking about books on these wrap-ups. So if I read them in the month, they are getting discussed. Because I feel like some books get kind of short shrift by being discussed. Say like I'm mostly finished with a book by the end of August. I might talk about it at the end of August and choose not to talk about it in September, but actually, like, I didn't have the full spectrum of the book. So anyway, the book that I finished right at the beginning of the month was Gate of the Feral Gods by Matt Dinniman. So I gave this one a 3 out of 5, and like I said, it was the most disappointing book of the month. And the reason being is that this series felt a little bit like it was treading water here. Like, we were getting a little bit of character progression, a little bit of story progression, but I really want to see now just so much more of what is going on outside of the dungeon. I want to see, the political machinations. I want to see what's going on with the system AI, because there's been something going on for, the entire series, and I feel like we need more clarity, we need more detail. So while I am still enjoying each read, I just really wanted more from this book, and that was why it ended up being probably my most disappointing and the only 3 out of 5 that I gave this month. So normally I've said in the past that 3 out of 5 is like on the bubble for me DNFing the book. That isn't the case here. I still very much enjoyed it, but when it comes to like a long-running series like Dungeon Crawler Carl, one of the big things that I think about is, do I want, would I expect more from this book than I got? And that's what I was expecting here. Is I was expecting more. Are we 4 books in now? I think we're 4 books in, and this feels like it could have been a book 2 book. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, I have actually started the next book. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Still kind of getting that vibe. I have to say as well, also, my brain is just starting to completely gloss over the lit RPG stuff. So when there's the I've got this new spell and it does X damage to certain types of enemies, and I've reworked out how to use this and how to use that, and that's fine if you're super into that. But having just finished reading Wheel of Time, there's bits in Wheel of Time where they'll be and Egwene discovered how to do a new weave and now she can teleport, and that that is so much, that's the detail I need. I need to know, how it affects the characters, how it affects the world. I don't need to see the numbers and the stats. That's one of the things that annoyed me about some of Sanderson's more recent stuff, is that he's kind of moving a little lit RPG and going the Nomad needed 9,000 BTUs to be able to cast this spell, and we don't need that, But I say we don't need that. a lot of people love this, so I won't I won't say it is bad and we don't need it. I'm saying that I personally don't need it. Let's move on, because we've been talking about that book for a really long time. Another book that so I forgot to mention, actually, this is Self-Pub September. So in September I try to read only self-published books. One traditionally published book did hang over from August, but I otherwise read all self-pub books this month. In the last couple of years I've been doing read-alongs, so haven't been able to read just self-pub. So really happy that I was able to nail it this year, mostly by putting off starting the new read-along until book two until October. So that was fun. But yeah, so we've got Time Marked Warlock by Shami Stovall. This is a self-published urban fantasy. Urban fantasy is one of my favourite genres, and I absolutely love urban fantasy, and it's weird how there's not actually that much of it in the big conversation on BookTube. I do think that a lot of that is because a lot of urban fantasy is like monster fucking romance stuff, which I'm not super interested in reading sex scenes in books. Like, for me, it's enough to show the light being turned off. I don't need to see the, full P. I don't know whether I needed to censor myself there. Can you say penetration? Probably. But anyway, Time Marked Warlock does not have full P. It does have a fantastic kind of time loop story. So what I want to tell you guys is, take Dresden Files, mash it up with Groundhog Day, and make it a really fun, thrilling mystery. Time loop plus mystery thriller is like how I feel about it. Is like kind of how you would describe this book. If you're into time loop stories, this is a really, really good one. It goes into the how you can use the time loop to your advantage, how you can use the time loop to take breaks to give your brain space away from the horror that you're experiencing. Really, really enjoyed this book. It was a 5 out of 5 for me, and I have to say it was in contention for Book of the Month. Absolutely fantastic book. If you have not read Time Marked Warlock, you really should read it, because it is great, and it's one of those books that I feel like I can recommend to pretty much anyone. If you're like, oh, I don't like, snarky protagonists or blah blah blah, maybe if you're a bit too self-serious, if you take your reading a bit too seriously, you maybe don't want to read this, but pretty much everyone else should give this a shot. After that, I finished Northern Lights by Philip Pullman. This is the only traditionally published book that I read this month. This book was, as I said, a hangover from August, because I was reading this one physically only, so I wasn't using the ebook, wasn't using the audio book. My time and space to read this book was actually fairly minimal. I really enjoyed the process of reading it. It kind of faltered for me at the end. It almost reminded me a little bit of Either World, where Either World is fantastic, and then it kind of feels like Robert Jordan goes, oh shit, I need to end this book. And it kind of felt like Philip Pullman had something similar, because the ending kind of comes out of nowhere and feels a little tacked on to another section of the book. I thought the writing was very, very good. Again, the ending was a bit hit or miss, and Lyra's dialogue, the way that was written, I did not love. In some parts. Most of the book, it didn't really stand out to me, but there were a few times where her dialogue was written with an accent, and I've never really been a huge fan of dialogue written with accents. I'm happy with an accent in an audiobook. I'm happy with characters being described as having accents, but I don't always want to read. I don't like reading characters in accents. It trips my brain up, and I don't enjoy it. I ended up rating Northern Lights a 4 out of 5. Really, really liked the book and the world especially, and I am looking forward to picking the series back up. But for me, it just was not what I was expecting in terms of the high watermark that I feel had been set for this series. Anyway, back to the self-pub. So after that, I read book 7 in one of my favourite self-pub series, which is Shield of the Mothership. The series is The Hybrid Helix, and this was by my friend JCM Berne. Quick disclaimer that Joe and I are pretty friendly, so you may be like, oh, I can't trust your opinion on this, but, tough luck, this is my opinion. I gave this one a 5 out of 5. I think it's probably the best Hybrid Helix book to date. We have one of the best action scenes I've read in a book all year, and the story was a really smart expansion of previous lore and world building stuff that we have had, and it also furthered the kind of big over story, the macro story. This is something that I've actually really want from Dungeon Crawler Carl, is I want them to move along the micro story of the book and the macro story of the series, and JCM Berne balanced that perfectly in this book, but we didn't get that from Dungeon Crawler Carl. I hope we do from the next book, which I've already started reading. Anyway, so Shield of the Mothership was fantastic. If you aren't reading The Hybrid Helix, you really should. It's such a good series. I gave book 1, I think, 3 or 4 stars, and book 1 is the weakest book. It just gets better as you go on. I do miss the little tease prologues that Joe used to do. So he used to do a prologue that was a big action scene from later in the book, and it would be a teased for this is what's going to happen, how do we get here, and I do miss that a little bit, but I understand that Joe said that a lot of readers said they didn't like it, so he stopped doing it. But for me, I do miss it a little bit. Next up, I read Death Tax by Andrew Givler. This is another urban fantasy, so really pleased to have nailed down 2 books in one of my favourite genres this month. Death Tax is the 4th book in the Debt Collection, which is a long-running urban fantasy series from Andrew Givler. It has a financial aspect to all of the stories, so you've got what's the train of thought? You've got the characters, the villains are all called CFO of Hell, or this is the CEO of Death, or whatever. They're all kind of viewed through this capitalist, big finance bro sort of lens. Death Tax I did really enjoy. I think the world building is fantastic in Death Tax. Barry, stop showing your bum. Sit down. Sit down. He's purring directly into the microphone, so we'll see whether you guys can hear that. But so Death Tax was a really, really smart expansion of the world building. It introduced us to a lot of characters that I really liked, though the reason I ended up knocking a star off was I really missed the supporting cast for the book. I did not have the relationship with the supporting cast that were introduced in this book that I have for the previous books, and I felt like it took a bit longer for me to get into and care about the characters introduced in this book versus the rest of the cast. I just missed the regular supporting cast, and like I said, it just felt like Matt was very well done, and Kane, who is Death, is really well done, but the overall kind of the rest of the cast felt a little thin, which is fine. They're probably single-use characters that we're never going to see again, or like that we might not see again for a while, but at least where we're at, I did enjoy. So let's talk about books that I'm currently in the middle of reading. So I'm currently reading Where Darkness Gathers by Philip Chase, which is the sequel to the Adan trilogy. I'm really liking that one. This one had the potential to be Book of the Month, but sadly I did not finish it, so I can't. I'm only like 60% in, so I can't give it that Book of the Month for this month. It'd be the first time where I've been reading a Philip Chase book and it hasn't been my favourite thing I've read that month, I think. The previous book in this series, the finale to the Adan trilogy, was my book of the year for last year, so I went into this with very high hopes, and actually I feel like Philip has completely met my expectations, and the series, the book has like that thing that I love where we revisit characters and worlds sometime later. So I think it's 16 years after the Adan trilogy is where this is set. And I really like the new cast of characters, but I also like the smart changes that have happened in the intervening years to the other characters. We've just where I am, I've read a couple of chapters this morning, having a really good time with this book, and hoping to finish it probably the next couple of days. I only have 2 hours of book left according to the Kindle prediction thingy. I'm also reading The Butcher's Masquerade by Matt Dinniman, which is book 5 of Dungeon Crawler Carl. The beginnings of these books often deal really heavily in the lit RPG stuff, and I've said it earlier, my brain is starting to gloss over these. I was listening to this at the gym earlier this week, and I was constantly having to rewind the book because I felt like I had not been paying attention to what had been going on for the last 10 minutes or so, because it's just all like, and then we chose this new class and this new ability, and now I've got this new spell, and this spell does this and this spell does that, and like I just feel like I want Matt Dinniman to get on with it. Like, that obviously shows that lit RPG is not really my genre, and I'm liking what I'm reading in terms of the world, and Carl does something kind of out of pocket like straight away in this book that I really liked, and I'm glad to see a bit of momentum early on in the book, but I'm cautious about this series overall. I don't think I'm going to DNF the series unless this book also does not really give me any plot motion for the macro story. But yeah, I feel like we've had 2 books in a row where it's been really focused on the story of the level we're on and not of the game overall. And I really do just want to get some progression for the overall story. I want to see, the political machinations. I want to see big developments. And if we don't see big developments in this, which is like, is it maybe the 2nd or 3rd book in a row without them, I may genuinely reconsider whether I want to continue reading the series. I'm having fun as we go, but I feel like I'm equal parts having fun reading and disappointed at the same time. Weird thing to say, but that's kind of where we are at the moment. I also started reading and then put down because I realised that I didn't think I would actually finish the rest of the books that I had on my schedule, and I had kind of announced my self-pub September TBR, so wanted to make sure that I got to those books. So I started reading Rise of the Ranger by Philip C. Quaintrell. I liked what I read of this book. I think I ended up being between 10 and 20% in when I shelved it. I don't know when I will pick it back up. And when I pick it up, I may actually restart. Same as I did with Death Tax. The book is good. It's really interesting to see a character who's kind of a Witcher-esque character, like a monster hunter, thrust into a more traditional high epic fantasy world. and I'm looking forward to getting to this series. When I was reading Wheel of Time, I had kind of made a rule for myself that I wasn't going to start any fantasy series that were more than trilogies. A few times I broke that rule, once without realising, because I started a book series that I thought was a trilogy, only to find out that it had been extended into a quadrilogy and the fourth book was forthcoming. That's the Eden Saga by Justin Lee Anderson. A couple of times with series that were like, well, is this a 6-book series or is it a 3-book trilogy with a sequel trilogy? Like First Law and Powder Mage. But for the most part, I kind of kept to that rule of only reading trilogies or smaller series. Now I've moved on to Malazan, I'm not going to be doing that. I am going to allow myself to read longer series again. The one caveat to that is I do think I'm still going to save Realm of the Elderlings to read as the next series after we finish Malazan. Or if not Realm of the Elderlings, Matt and I will read Realm of the Elderlings together, essentially. I think we've already discussed that's kind of where we want to go after Malazan, but we might also read First Law first. So because First Law has, it's got a decent number of books, it's good for a read along like we've done with Wheel of Time and are going to do with Malazan. And the one caveat with Realm of the Elderlings is I've already read 4 of those books, whereas so I don't know if I want to read those again. They're good books, but I'm not a big rereader. So yeah, maybe we'll pick Rise of the Ranger and the Echo Saga as our series because I'll probably read that before we get to it. So Matt and I will pick another classic mega series to read after Malazan, possibly Realm of the Elderlings, maybe not, we don't know. And that is also if we like Malazan. If we don't get into Malazan, we may end up being like, well, now we have no idea what to read. Maybe we'll pick up something else. We have actually discussed wanting to read Memory, Sorrow and Thorn together, but maybe we'll just do that outside of Malazan, so we'll do it as an extra. I need to talk to Matt about that. Anyway, Rise of the Ranger, Philip C. Quaintrell, good book so far. Not far enough in to make a judgment on it. And again, October I want to read a few spooky books. Maybe I'll come back to it in November. We'll have to see. I don't know right now. That's books. Book of the month was Shield of the Mothership by JCM Berne. It just gave me everything I wanted from that book. The Shami Stovall's time-marked Warlock was very close to being Book of the Month as well. But for me, I think Shield of the Mothership, because of my investment in the characters and the story, ended up being just pipping it to the post by a couple of % and ended up being my Book of the Month. Let's talk about the channel. So we're going to do a whistle-stop tour here because I'm quite far into the video already. So we've got 5.4 thousand views this month, which is up 7% on August. 605 watch hours, which is up 14% from August. And 52 subs, which is actually up 63% from August. A big portion of that is because I announced that I was going to start reading Malazan, and a lot of people who want to follow that journey have subscribed to the channel. The best performing video of the month was my announcement that I was going to be reading Malazan, and I almost didn't record that video, so I'm really glad that I did. And if you are watching this video even, because you are excited for me to start Malazan, I'm starting very, very, very soon. So I'm going to finish Where Darkness Gathers by Philip Chase, and then probably slot in a horror book and then move straight on to Malazan. So hopefully you guys will stick around, and I'll see you later this month for Gardens of the Moon. My worst performing video of the month has only been up for 2 days, which is my video review for Death Tax. It is book 4 in a self-published series, so I completely understand why this has not performed super well. Although my review for Gate of the Feral Gods didn't perform very well, and that's been up for almost a month. It's only got like 60-something views, and Dungeon Crawler Carl is a hugely popular series, so reviews don't always perform particularly well anyway. But yeah, just wanted to highlight that if you have not watched the Death Tax review and you've read the first 3 books in the deck collection, please do watch Death Tax review. It's spoiler free for the book. I just talk about some basic setup stuff, so it would be lovely to get some more eyes on that series for Andrew, who is a really fun author. I've actually got his trad published debut. He sent me an arc for that, so read that at some point. Update on the book buying ban to close the video. So I have not been keeping track of my book purchases. I have bought a book from Vinted this year. I have been buying Broken Binding books, although one of the trilogies that I've got sent I'm not super interested in and will probably resell. But just wanted to say I don't have good figures anymore for the book buying ban. So what I'm going to do is stop updating you guys each month unless I make a big purchase. And then I will tot it all up at the end of the year. And the goal is to spend less on books than I make on BookTube, or through selling books. And I will do a full video on that at the end of December. So that will be part of my year wrap-up video. So I'll do like the year wrap-up video, I'll do my books of the year video, and I will do my book buying ban update video. And that will be, so usually between Christmas and New Year, I like to pre-record all of that content through December. So that means that I can kind of focus on time with the family over those few days. So yeah, that's everything I think that we need to talk about. I'd love to know what your favourite book of September was. So let me know your favourite thing that you read. Let me know what you're planning to read in October. You got any spooky reads on the go? And of course, like the video to tell YouTube you liked it. Subscribe to the channel to see my future content, and have a lovely day. Goodbye.